Today I'd like to talk with you about the collateral victims of divorce, the children. I started really focusing on the adult children of divorce when I got my hands on Layla Miller's copy of the book Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. And many of you watching this video has already gotten that book and you understand where it came from. But for those of you that did not, Layla Miller basically had an adult friend she'd been talking to for years, who had spoken to her about how raw she was about her parents' divorce. Assuming that her friend's parents was a new divorce, Layla was shocked to find out that her parents had actually been divorced about 30 years. And she's like, and you're still this raw? So she wanted to find out if that person was alone, or was there a whole group of people? Did everybody whose parents were divorced feel this way, or what? So what she did is she set out to collect the voices of children of divorce, again, the now adult children. So all she did was send out questions and ask to get anonymous feedback, which sadly, most of the children who, well, all of them really, who wrote back to Layla said, thank you for the anonymity, because I would not want to hurt my parents. If I had someone know who I was and what my true feelings were, I wouldn't give you this opinion. And let's just stop right there. Let's just stop right there. Children, we can all agree, are the greatest victims of divorce. It's just something that happens and they have no say-so. And yet they're the ones that are forced to remain silent. They're the ones that are forced to swallow their feelings. They're the ones who are being told that you have to accept this. And I say this, I am an adult child of divorce myself. And back then I encouraged my mom to get divorced, but basically it's just because I didn't like my dad back then. But I don't really want my parents divorced, so I would love to have them reconciled today. But we all handle this differently. I know that me and my older sister were fine at the time with my parents' divorce, and my younger two siblings needed therapy. They had a very difficult time with it. But the point I'm making with this comment is this. Mommy and daddy are the ones who are supposed to fix all your boo-boos. When you fall, when you get hurt, mommy and daddy are the ones that you run to. Say, put the Band-Aid on my knee, help me, mommy, I'm hurting. And they will love you and take all that pain away with all the kisses and all the hugs they can. And when you're an adult, your parents are the ones that will encourage you and say, sweetheart, I'm so sorry that you had to go through whatever it is that you're crying to mom and dad about. But when it comes to divorce, it is the one time that those who should take away your pain are actually those who inflict pain upon you. So I know I'm opening up a raw can here of worms, because most of you watching, at least half of you, are adult children of divorce. And you have your own feelings. But I want you to dig back into, what did you feel back then? And what do you feel now? That was one of the questions Layla asked. And I'm going to read to you some responses out of the book for those of you that haven't gotten your copy of it yet. But I will say it now, and I'm going to say it at the end of this video. The reason I'm doing this video is this. I love God, and I believe we should never break his commandments. So I want to start with saying, do not break the commandment that says, honor thy father and thy mother. You never, never lose honor of them, even if they're awful drug addicts or have abandoned you. There's an honor bestowed to parents, okay? Doesn't mean you have to like them, doesn't mean you have to live with them, doesn't mean in the cases of you're sexually abused by a parent that you have to even associate with them. We can talk more about what honoring your parents means. But what I am hoping to encourage people to do, and this may be painful, is to tell your parents, is to tell people maybe who are not your parents, people who are considering divorce, what it felt like, what it feels like, and what you think they should know. Do not do this to your children for these reasons. Give children a voice. We're in this ideological society that's trying to say, oh, let's care about the kids. They don't. So if you really care about the kids, and I've said this before, let's put our feelings behind us and let's deal with how the kids are feeling. So let me start with a few of these responses. So one of the questions Layla asked was, what were the effects that your parents' divorce had on you? And so in this book, she doesn't name them, she simply gives them numbers. So person number 61 simply writes, the effects of my parents' divorce on me? I refuse to repeat their mistakes, number 1. Number 2, I am more sensitive to children of divorce as well as spouses who have been cheated on. And number 3, I was extremely insecure as a teen and young adult because of my mom and dad's hypocritical approach to marriage and parenting. I have a very poor and dishonest relationship with them. Okay, bad, but here's another. This is only part of the response from another person, and it says, divorce creates its own language for a child. Much of it is unspoken, and the child is the only one who achieves fluency. It might be the voice of doubt in the back of my head one day, or the voice of indecision where I should be resolute another day. This perpetually dysfunctional language replaces the language of family love that otherwise forms a child's internal dialogue. So in a way, divorce becomes the everlasting gift to the child that the child cannot overcome. The dysfunction replaces the permanence and security of an intact family. Person number 32 writes, my parents' divorce has led to a very basic and fundamental lack of trust in people. I emotionally shut down at age 8 as a defense mechanism, and this has continued into adulthood. Person number 31. Thank you for anonymity. I don't want anyone to know the extent of how damaged I am. I remember my dad carrying me down the stairs and I was crying and telling him I didn't want him and my mom to get a divorce. I was little. He said not to worry. My next memory, I walk into the house and I see 2 empty chairs looking at each other. It's a searing memory in my brain. They must have been sitting there fighting, and now they are empty. My next memory, I'm at 12 and I'm lying on my bed. I was just told my parents are getting divorced. Told to me by my dad, and then I'm sent to school. Can you imagine? I'm an only child. I really have nobody. So she goes on to talk about her parents and other memories and really talks about this big, wide open hole that is so painful she started filling with food. She talks about her weight gain and how that affected her life. Another person, number 38, writes, my mom divorced my dad. Throughout the years, she had been the nucleus of the family. She kept everyone going, including my dad, who after retiring from the Navy took a back seat. He's an unemotional person. It was my mom who kept him with a purpose within the family. When she left him, she decided she didn't want to do Sunday dinners anymore, and she didn't want to be the one planning holidays and celebrations. She checked out of that role, and we just had to deal with it. The safe place and feeling of being at your parents' or grandparents' house was gone. Thank God I had the church, because from there I drew comfort and safety. I no longer had it with my parents. That is sad. And I just have 2 more I wanted to read. These 2 are in response to what were your feelings about your parents' divorce as a child versus how you feel as an adult. Person number 59 wrote, I felt unimportant and insignificant as a child. My opinion did not matter. I just knew that my dad did not care about me or my brother. I did not want anything to do with him in return. As a teenager, I despised him and I hated him for what he had done, especially to my brother, who had maintained a semi-sort of relationship with him, but always ended up hurt. As an adult, I now don't really care. My dad has passed on and I never really knew him. I often regret not knowing more about the family history and illnesses for my own children's sake, but I am resigned to the fact that I was better off without him. And lastly, I'm shocked at how affected I am, person 38 writes. Having been an adult when this happened, I think I bought into my mom's vision of how this would go down, and I wasn't as angry or upset in the beginning. But as time has gone on, I see how little she did to salvage her marriage, probably because she had someone waiting in the wings, someone in whom she had been confiding about her bad marriage. This man had been a stressful member of our family and has changed my mom's outlook on her role as mother and grandmother. She is stepping back, has very little to do with us and them, but for a few times a year. She's now very unattached and uncommitted to that part of her life. Blended families are that whole feeble and awkward attempt to throw people together who are so different, in our case, different religions, politics, values, and traditions. It is extremely stressful and uncomfortable. This added byproduct of the divorce just adds to its sadness and discomfort. And lastly, person 29 simply says, I was more sympathetic to the divorce as a child, and I did not acknowledge my own hurt. There are a lot in here, and I'm going to take some time doing some videos with some of the other responses. But what I'm calling you to do is, if you are an adult child of divorce, is to speak about it. I know a lot of people want anonymity, and the fact that I do these videos, I get so many of you telling me, I'm so glad you're saying it, because we were thinking it and no one's saying it. And I don't want to make anyone do anything that's bad, but if we don't have voices, if we don't speak up, the next generation of divorce victims will feel as if they too have no voice. Be that person, be strong. Whether you're able to tell your mom or your dad or just someone else, start giving a voice to the pain of divorce, because as parents, we too have been lied to by these psychiatrists and so-called social scientists saying kids prefer you apart and happy than together and fighting. That's a crock. That's not actual research. And children actually in the most selfish stage of their life would prefer you together and miserable, as long as they have the security of their mom and dad. You carry that cross, not the children. Again, I'm not hitting you up on that. I'm trying to speak to children of divorce. You have a voice. Don't lie. Don't lie to anybody. If you're angry about it, tell someone, I'm angry. It's not right. And it doesn't mean you don't love your parents. If you tell your mom and your dad, I love you, but I'm so upset about this. I think what you did was selfish. If you tell them, I don't want a stepmother, I don't want a stepfather, stay apart. If you can't remarry mommy or daddy, then stay apart for us. Because often it's but I deserve to be happy too. Well, if you do, then do it after your kids are long gone and out of the house. But as some of these writers just said, you know, my mom's not the grandmother or mother she would have been had she stayed with dad. My dad was distant. There's a distance that is created that is refused to be talked about. Look at all the television shows, starting as far back as the Brady Bunch. Look at how happy mom and dad were bringing those kids together. After the first show, no one really knew about the girl's dad, the girl's dad that died, the Brady girls and the Brady mom, the boys. They kind of alluded to they came together, never mentioned death, never mentioned divorce. That was the foray into blended families. And doesn't it look really nice and happy? It's not always happy. And one last thing, when I ask my students about talking about their parents reconciling, all they ever say is, well, I can't see my parents back together. But I say, I didn't ask you what you can see, but I asked you if your parents could be happily married, would you rather see your mom with your dad or your mom with your stepdad? And vice versa. And they are like, well, if I knew they wouldn't fight, I'd like them together. So these are your marching orders. Start speaking up. Christine Bacon cannot do all the talking. The 59 or 60 some people in this book cannot be the only ones. Otherwise, they try to nominalize us and say, oh, that's just a couple rare people. If everybody who's been victimized by divorce starts speaking up, and not be afraid of your sister because she's been divorced, what she'll think, or your aunt because she's been divorced, what she'll think, or people will think I'm judging. You know what? You're not judging, and you can tell them, just because I'm speaking my truth doesn't mean I'm judging. So let's start working together to end the scourge of divorce. Speak up. Speak the truth, but speak the truth with love. If you have difficulty doing that, and you want to know exactly how to start phrasing it in the word or writing, look me up. I'm Christine at breakfastwithbacon.com. I will fight with you and for you. I'll do the best I can. I'm only one person, but I will fight till the day I die to end the scourge of divorce. That's it. I know you can do this. God bless you. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon, and this is my small version of Breakfast with Bacon. And as always, I want to remind you to live your life suddenly.